सो क्लास को स्टार्ट करेंगे हम लोग फिर से। कल क्लास में थोड़ा सा डिस्टरबेंसेस था, तो हम लोग फिर से उसी टॉपिक को स्टार्ट करें। इनफैक्ट क्लास नहीं हो पाई थी। सो विल स्टार्ट दिस चैप्टर ऑन मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी। हो गया? या दिस इज कंप्लीटेड। दिस इज कंप्लीटेड। बस थोड़ा सा इतना रख लो। एज पर सिलेबस चल रहे। क्यों? क्या सिलेबस देखा था? नहीं नहीं, वहीं से आप बताइए। हम्म तो ये क्या चीज़ का सिलेबस है? प्रीलिम्स का देखा है? क्वेश्चंस देखे हो? बैंकिंग से क्वेश्चंस आता है या नहीं? देखे हो क्वेश्चंस? क्या? तो आप बोलो तो मैं उसके अकॉर्डिंग पढ़ा दूंगा। सिलेबस में इकोनॉमिक्स में जो है, कोई ऐसा ये जो है ना, टॉपिक्स को अच्छे तरीके से डिफाइन नहीं किया गया। वेल डिफाइंड टॉपिक्स नहीं है। जैसे प्रीलिम के सिलेबस में लिखा गया है कि सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, समझ रहे हो? सिलेबस में दिया है सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, तो उसमें कई सारे टॉपिक्स आएंगे। तो आपको कौन कौन से टॉपिक्स पढ़ना है, कौन कौन से नहीं पढ़ना, उसके लिए आपको फिर प्रीवियस ईयर्स के क्वेश्चंस को देखना होगा, है ना? तो जो अभी मैं टॉपिक आप लोग को पढ़ा रहा हूँ, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, मोस्टली दे आर फ्रॉम प्रीलिम्स टॉपिक, है ना? वो प्रीलिम्स से है। लेकिन मेंस के क्वेश्चंस को आंसर्स करने के लिए भी आपको ये सारे पॉलिसी की समझ होनी चाहिए, है ना? उसमें भी जो टॉपिक्स है उसको करवाए जाएंगे, है ना? एक एक करके हम लोग करेंगे। तो विल स्टार्ट दिस मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी। Monetary policy, we'll see the meaning of monetary policy, then various types of monetary policy, then objectives of monetary policy, and at last we'll discuss the new framework of monetary policy, which is called inflation targeting. Inflation targeting. So these are chapters under this topic. We'll see the meaning of monetary policy, various types of monetary policy, objectives of monetary policy, and at last we'll discuss new framework of monetary policy. So we know that the central bank of the economy is responsible for making and implementing monetary policy, right? And this happens everywhere in the world economy. Everywhere in every economy you find that the central bank of the country is given the responsibility of making and implementing monetary policy. Here in our country, Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank of this country, has been given the responsibility of making monetary policy and implementing them. So first of all, we'll try to know what we mean by monetary policy, right? And then second, we'll see the various types of monetary policy, so that we have the broader concept on the meaning of monetary policy. So before we define the concept of monetary policy, we have to know about three different things about monetary policy. The first thing is the instruments of monetary policy. We have to know about the instruments of monetary policy. This is also called tools of monetary policy or weapons of monetary policy. Second one is targets of monetary policy. Targets of monetary policy. And third one is objectives of monetary policy. हमें ये पता होना चाहिए कि what are the different weapons of monetary policy, what are the targets of monetary policy, and what are the various objectives of monetary policy. In fact, these two concepts may confuse you, है ना? Sometimes we consider them to be similar to each other. Targets are different from the objectives of monetary policy. What are the difference? We'll discuss here in this point, right? But before that, the instruments that comes within the ambit of monetary policy is what we have to know. And we have seen that there are basically two kinds of instruments lying with the Reserve Bank of India, and they are called the weapons of monetary policy, right? The first one is quantitative instrument and second one is qualitative, right? So all the quantitative and qualitative instruments are the instruments of monetary policy. They are the weapons of monetary policy. Like repo rate, this is one of the weapons. Then reverse repo rate, another weapons. Then आपका CRR, SLR, all these quantitative and qualitative instruments are called the weapons and the tools of monetary policy, right? It means that these instruments are used by Reserve Bank of India in the conduct of monetary policy. Or in other words, we can say that monetary policy is implemented by the central bank of the country by using any of these instruments or tools, right? Then what are the targets of monetary policy? That means what economic variables Reserve Bank of India targets through its monetary policy, right? What economic variables are targeted through monetary policy or through the use of various quantitative and qualitative tools. So we have seen that when any of the policy instruments are used, let's suppose repo rate is increased by Reserve Bank of India. So when repo rate is increased in the economy, it becomes more expensive for commercial bank to take the loan from RBI. So commercial banks will also increase rate of interest. So rate of interest in the economy increases, right? And when rate of interest increases, this causes volume of credit to come down. And this implies that money supply will also be reducing, right? So we find that when weapon is used under monetary policy, it impacts three economic variables. It impacts three economic variables. The first one is rate of interest, the second one is volume of credit, and third one is money supply. So these three economic variables are influenced by Reserve Bank of India through the conduct of monetary policy or through the use of various quantitative and qualitative tools, right? So these three economic variables are called the targets of monetary policy. Reserve Bank of India through its monetary policy or through the use of quantitative and qualitative instruments will target these three important economic variables so that some broad objectives of the economy could be achieved, right? So that some broad objectives of the economy could be achieved. And what are those objectives? That is something we'll discuss here in this particular topic, right? Here in this particular topic, we'll discuss what are those broad economic objectives for which monetary policy is conducted, and these three economic variables are influenced by Reserve Bank of India, right? So when you define this concept of monetary policy, you have to include all these three important things relating to monetary policy. In your definition, you have to include the various instruments that are used under monetary policy. Then you have to specify what economic variables are targeted through the conduct of monetary policy, and then you mention about the objectives for which monetary policy is conducted in the economy, right? So how we define, considering all these important parts of monetary policy? So basically the use of quantitative and qualitative instruments, the use of quantitative and qualitative instruments is called monetary policy. Is called monetary policy. So most of the time you find that definition has been given in that manner, right? But this is not a complete definition. In this definition you just find the way by which monetary policy is conducted, right? Here you can see that it refers to the use of various quantitative and qualitative tools by Reserve Bank of India. That is what we mean by monetary policy. So in fact, in this definition, it has been stated how monetary policy is conducted, right? It has not been stated what is monetary policy. Rather, it has been stated how monetary policy is conducted. You can see that monetary policy is conducted by the use of various quantitative and qualitative tools, right? So this is not a complete definition of monetary policy, but yes, this particular definition make it very clear that it is by the use of various quantitative and qualitative tools that monetary policy is conducted by Reserve Bank of India. Whenever Reserve Bank of India brings all these instruments in use, we'll say that monetary policy is being conducted by it, right? Like today, let's suppose you are reading a newspaper and you come across a news that says that Reserve Bank of India is going to bring down or going to increase repo rate. So today Reserve Bank of India is going to use one of the quantitative instruments. So you can say that today Reserve Bank of India is going to conduct a kind of monetary policy, right? So it's always by the use of quantitative and qualitative tools that Reserve Bank of India conducts or implements monetary policy. However, this definition is not going to be completed one, right? In your definition you have to take into consideration even these two aspects of monetary policy. You have to specify which economic targets are being influenced by Reserve Bank of India through the use of quantitative and qualitative tools, and ultimately you have to specify the objectives for which monetary policy is conducted, right? So how to make this definition a complete one? So you can write that the use of quantitative and qualitative instruments, comma, in order to influence rate of interest, in order to influence rate of interest, volume of credit and supply of money, so that some broad objectives of an economy can be achieved. Some broad objectives of economy could be achieved is called monetary policy. This is how you include all the things in your definition. You are saying that the use of quantitative and qualitative instruments. Why? In order to influence rate of interest, volume of credit and supply of money, so that some broad objectives of an economy can be achieved is called monetary policy, right? So basically the use of quantitative and qualitative tool is monetary policy, but here you have to specify which economic variables Reserve Bank of India is trying to influence. You specify these three economic variables and ultimately you specify the objective for which monetary policy is going to be implemented by the central bank of this country, right? So whenever you find that Reserve Bank of India is bringing in use any of the quantitative or qualitative instruments, right? You'll say that monetary policy is going to be implemented, right? And the conduct of monetary policy will always influence these three economic variables. Out of these three economic targets of monetary policy, this is the first and immediate target of monetary policy, rate of interest, right? Because when quantitative or qualitative instruments are brought into use by Reserve Bank of India, the rate of interest is the economic variable which get impacted first of all, right? And then other two economic variables like volume of credit and supply of money will be impacted. So this is the first and immediate target of monetary policy, right? And when we target all these economic variables, there are certain objectives in our mind or in the minds of Reserve Bank of India for which policy is conducted in the economy. What are those objectives in the minds? We'll discuss later on, right? So this is what we mean by monetary policy, right? So it is concerned with supply of money, it is concerned with volume of credit, and it is also concerned with cost of credit, which is called rate of interest. Hai? So if you are being asked what is monetary policy concerned with, so you can say that monetary policy is concerned with volume of credit, it is concerned with supply of money, it is concerned with rate of interest. So when monetary policy is implemented by Reserve Bank of India, through its Reserve Bank of India wants to influence all these things. It wants to increase or decrease the quantity of money or volume of credit in the economy, or it wants to increase or decrease the rate of interest in the economy. So it is always concerned with money and cost of credit, that is called rate of interest. Is that clear? समझ में आया? आकाश नहीं है क्या? वीडियो नहीं आ रहा बच्चों को, सिर्फ ऑडियो आ रहा. मुझे आप लोग नहीं देख पा रहे क्या? आप लोग देख पा रहे हैं? ठीक है, इट्स ओके. सो आप लोगों ने लिख लिया होगा ना, मैंने इसको डिफाइन किया कैसे, और ये सारे एलिमेंट्स को आपको इंक्लूड करना है. इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स कौन कौन से होते हैं, टारगेट्स क्या है और ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या है ना. इस तरीके से आप डिफाइन करते हैं मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी को. नाउ विल सी द वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, है ना. एंड when you study various types of monetary policy, that will make you understand the meaning of monetary policy in a very comprehensive manner, right? So basically there are two types of monetary policy. There are two types of monetary policy. Please write it down. There are two types of monetary policy. One is called expansionary monetary policy, or you better call it cheap monetary policy, and expensive or dear monetary policy. Cheap monetary policy and dear monetary policy. The central bank of the country may implement either of the policy. This is less expensive monetary policy and this is more expensive monetary policy. In this less expensive monetary policy, you find that availing of credit from the banking system is going to be less expensive. That means you'll have to pay lower rate of interest. So when cheap monetary policy is implemented, here Reserve Bank of India strive to bring down rate of interest, right? Here RBI will try to reduce the rate of interest in the economy so that availing of credit from the banking system is less expensive, right? And how this rate of interest can be reduced? This rate of interest in the economy can be reduced by the use of any of the quantitative instruments like repo rate. Let's suppose Reserve Bank of India decides to bring down repo rate. That will ultimately cause rate of interest in the economy to come down, right? I told you that Reserve Bank of India conducts monetary policy by the use of quantitative and qualitative instruments, and here you can see that Reserve Bank of India brings down rate of interest, brings down the repo rate, so that rate of interest in the economy can be lowered. And once rate of interest becomes lower in the economy, that implies that now availing of credit from the banking system is going to be less expensive. This is what we mean by cheap monetary policy, right? This is what we mean by cheap monetary policy. You got this? On the other hand, when we have the expansive or dear monetary policy, here Reserve Bank of India strive to increase rate of interest in the economy, and this can be done by RBI by increase of repo rate. So let's suppose repo rate is increased. That is an example of the expansive or dear monetary policy, because increase in repo rate effected by Reserve Bank of India will ultimately translate into higher inflation. Higher rate of interest. That means now availing of credit from the banking system is going to be more expensive than before. If you take the loan from the banking system, you will have to pay higher rate of interest. This is what we mean by expansive or dear monetary policy. Okay? So this is very easy. This is very easy to understand. You just need to look at what is happening to rate of interest. If rate of interest is brought down by RBI, that is an example of cheap money policy, and if rate of interest is sought to be increased, then this is an example of expansive or dear monetary policy. Now we have to know what economic situations requires these two kinds of monetary policy. That means in what economic circumstances cheap monetary policy and dear monetary policy has to be implemented, right? So basically look at the benefits of lowering of rate of interest. When rate of interest in the economy comes down, that helps the economy to invest more. Investment increases. We know that there is an inverse relationship between investment and rate of interest. Lower the rate of interest, higher is the investment. So benefit of cheap money policy is that this is going to boost up investment in the economy, and as investment increases in the economy, that's going to create more jobs, more employment, and our GDP or output will eventually increase, right? So what we find that even the employment will increase as a result of this cheap money policy, and our GDP or output will also increase. This is the benefit of implementing the cheap money policy, in which rate of interest is brought down by the central bank of the country. So basically the benefit is in terms of expansion of employment and output, and that is why this cheap money policy is also called expansionary monetary policy. This is also called expansionary monetary policy. And why this is so? Because this particular policy brings about an expansion in the economy. This particular monetary policy brings about an expansion in the economy. What expansion it brings about? It brings about an expansion in investment, employment, and GDP or production, right? आगे समझ में आप लोग को? So this employment and GDP has to be increased when we have economic slowdown or recession. Economic slowdown or recession. We can say that the policy is implemented by the central bank of the country at the time of economic slowdown. At the time of economic slowdown, we find that employment, investment, and GDP, all of them are subdued, right? Now to revive them in the economy, to increase the volume of investment, employment, and GDP, we have to ensure that rate of interest is minimum in the economy, so that producers in the economy get encouragement and they start taking the loan from the banking system, make huge quantity of investment in the economy, and that's going to spur up investment as well as GDP. So basically this policy is implemented at the time of economic slowdown. Everywhere in the world where there is slowdown in the economy, you find the central bank to be implementing this sort of economic policy or monetary policy. On the other hand, when we have inflation, if we have inflation in the economy, then the central bank of the country needs to implement the expansive monetary policy. Yeah, federal bank is trying to 5%. Yes. Yeah, because right now America has the concern of higher inflation, right? The rate of inflation in America is increasing. So Central Bank of that country, Federal Reserve, is concerned about the increasing rate of inflation. So Federal Reserve has hinted that the next meeting will witness an increase in rate of interest from 2.25% to 5%, right? Rate of interest in America is very less. It was 0% some months back. Right now this is only 0.25%. In our country, repo rate, the minimum rate of interest prevailing in the economy is 4%, but in America it is 0.25%, and the central bank of that country is trying to increase it further as there is the situation of inflation in the economy. But in the economy where we have the slowdown, there is subdued in investment, in those economy you'll find that central bank will try to central bank will try to lower the rate of interest so that investment can be spurred up, and that helps augmenting the opportunity of jobs and employment in the economy, right? So we have two kinds of economic situations in terms of economic imbalances. The imbalances could be in terms of economic slowdown, or it can be in terms of inflation. So in times of slowdown, we have to implement cheap monetary policy, and at the time of inflation, we have to implement the expansive monetary policy in which rate of interest is increased. So how this increase in rate of interest going to mitigate the impact of inflation? Because when rate of interest will increase, people will start availing less amount of credit, right? So money supply will come down, and this will cause aggregate demand to reduce, and when demand reduces in the economy, this will help the central bank of the country to lower inflation in the economy. Price will also come down when demand comes down, and that way by implementing expansive monetary policy, the impact of inflation can be mitigated, right? Is that clear? This dear monetary policy is called contractionary monetary policy. This is called contractionary monetary policy, and cheap monetary policy is called expansionary, as it brings an expansion in investment, employment and GDP. On the other hand, this expansive monetary policy brings shrinkage in employment and prices and GDP also. So that is called the contractionary monetary policy. ठीक है? समझ पाए आप लोग? ठीक है. So मैंने आपको बताया कि when we have the economic slowdown, the central bank of the country has to implement the cheap monetary policy. Does that mean cheap monetary policy will not be implemented in normal times? Yes, it has to be necessarily implemented when there is economic slowdown, but that doesn't rule out the possibility of using it by the central bank of the country even in normal times. You find that countries like India are having this kind of monetary policy even in normal times, because we have the benefit in terms of augmenting the size of employment in our country as a result of this cheap money policy. So there is rampant unemployment in our country. A large number of people are unemployed in our country. So this is a challenge for economies like us to augment the avenues of jobs in our country, and that can be done only by augmenting investment in our country, only by increasing investment, right? And investment can be spurred up, it can be increased only when rate of interest is brought down, and for that reasons the central bank of the country will have to implement the cheap monetary policy. So cheap monetary policy is also implemented in normal times when there is no economic slowdown. For example, this repo rate used to be in 2015, repo rate used to be 8%. Look here. And from that point of time, Reserve Bank of India started cutting down the repo rate in our country, right? There was a continuous decline in repo rate effected by Reserve Bank of India, and it has been now brought down to only 4%. The cut was effected by the central bank of this country right from 2015. But in 2015, 16, and even 17, there was no economic slowdown, no recession at all. In fact, there has been growth in the economy, output was increasing, people were getting the jobs in our economy. In spite of that, we find that the Reserve Bank of India was cutting down the rate of interest. And this shows that even in normal times, when there is no economic slowdown, such cheap monetary policy can be used and implemented. Why? Because the benefit is in terms of increased employment and GDP. We can, further increase the avenues of jobs in our country as a result of this cheap money policy, right? So when Reserve Bank of India brought down repo rate, and as a result of which rate of interest was further reduced in the economy, there would have been some more investment coming forth, right? Some more investment came forth in the economy, and that would have created lots of jobs in our country, right? So we have the problem in terms of unemployment, we have the problem in terms of subdued growth in our GDP or productions, right? And that is the reasons even in normal times countries like India may implement the cheap monetary policy, right? So it has to be necessarily implemented at the time of economic slowdown, because this helps the economy get out of the situation of economic slowdown. Productions and employment will start increasing as a result of this cheap monetary policy. But in normal times, even the central bank of the developing countries or poor countries can use it in order to promote employment and GDP. But when it comes to the contractionary and expansive monetary policy, it has to be used only when we have a higher rate of inflation in the economy, right? We have to be more careful, we have to be more cautious in the use of contractionary or dear monetary policy. Why this is so? Because if we implement this one, in which rate of interest is further increased, and let's suppose there is no inflation but you implement this policy, then this is going to hamper the process of growth and creation of jobs in our country. Because when rate of interest will increase, that brings down the level of investment in the economy. So we have to be very careful in the use of contractionary or dear monetary policy. We have to ensure that there is higher rate of inflation in the economy, then only we must be using it, right? So you might have seen the behavior of Reserve Bank of India this time around. The rate of inflation is now 7% CPI, and WPI inflation is around 15%. In spite of that, this time when the decision on repo rate was taken by Reserve Bank of India on 5th and 6th of April, the Reserve Bank of India decided not to increase the repo rate, even though we have the inflation, because Reserve Bank of India opined that this inflation in the economy prevailing today is transient by nature. This is temporary by nature. After some time, when there is the onset of monsoon, and the supplies start coming into the economy, right, the inflation will die down in the economy. So there is no need of taming it down by increasing the rate of interest, right? Rate of interest is a very sensitive economic variable. We have to be very careful in the use of rate of interest, because when this is increased without any rhymes or reasons, it is going to impact the level of investment in the economy, right? To ensure that no growth is impacted, no investment is impacted, Reserve Bank of India decided not to increase the rate of interest this time around. But if inflation remain persistent, let's suppose inflation is not being reduced in the economy even after 2 months of time, then ultimately Reserve Bank of India, in order to just douse the fire of inflation, will have to implement this particular contractionary monetary policy. You got this point? आ गया समझ में आप लोगों को? यस और नो बोलिए, समझ पाए? Okay, now we'll discuss various objectives of monetary policy. Please write it down. Various objectives of monetary policy. Objectives of monetary policy. So one of the important economic objective is economic growth. To achieve economic growth is one of the important objectives of monetary policy. Reserve Bank of India, through its monetary policy, wants to ensure that there is some sort of economic growth in the economy, right? So achieving growth is one of the important objectives. Either you say economic growth or you say growth. Both have the same meaning, right? Achieving economic growth or achieving growth is one of the important objectives of monetary policy. So in this particular topic, we have to learn two different things. First, we learn what we mean by economic growth. Second, we learn how through monetary policy this growth objective is achieved by Reserve Bank of India, right? So first we'll see the meaning of economic growth. Here growth means what? Growth means increase in output or production. Increase in output or production or GDP. This is what we mean by growth or economic growth. When there is increase in production in the economy, we call this phenomenon as economic growth, right? For example, let's suppose in the economy of India, last year we had produced, in 2020 we had produced 100 units of commodities, right? And this year in 2021 we have produced 110 units of commodity. You can see that as compared to last year we have produced more. We have produced more. So this is the situation of economic growth. So when we have growth in the economy, you will find that in all the sectors of the productions there has been more productions as compared to last year, right? We know that there are three sectors of economy. Primary sector, in which agriculture is the most economic activity. Then we have the secondary sector and tertiary sector, right? So when we have growth in the economy, you'll find that the total output produced in the economy this year will be larger and more as compared to last year, right? So in agriculture sector, let's suppose last year in 2020 we had produced 252 million ton of food grains, and in 2021 we have produced 260 million ton of food grains. So what we find? We find that there is economic growth in agriculture sector, as output produced in this sector has been larger as compared to last year. But the situation could have been just opposite. Let's suppose as compared to last year, this year we would have produced less. That means 250 million ton of food grains only. Then this is called economic slowdown. Slowdown is just opposite of economic growth. In economic growth, we produce more than what we had produced last year, and in economic slowdown, the productions level is found to be lower as compared to last year, right? So increase in production or GDP is called economic growth. And Reserve Bank of India, through its monetary policy, wants to increase the level of GDP in the economy, right? It wants to increase the level of GDP in the economy or achieve the economic objective of growth. So what kind of economic or monetary policy has to be suggested? Whether monetary policy has to be the expansionary or contractionary for the sake of achieving the objective of economic growth? Yes. आप लोग बताइए ऑनलाइन वाले बच्चे कि if you want to achieve the objective of growth, whether monetary policy has to be expansionary or contractionary? Yeah, expansionary, है ना? Yes, expansionary, but how expansionary monetary policy augment the size of GDP? Because in expansionary monetary policy, rate of interest is lower in the economy, and this lower rate of interest incentivize our producers to take the plunge and make more investment in the economy. So investment will increase in the economy when rate of interest is brought down under expansionary monetary policy, and this increase in investment will ultimately help our GDP to increase, right? Our production, our GDP will increase, so we achieve the objective of economic growth by the use of expansionary monetary policy, right? But why growth is necessary? Why growth is necessary? हम क्यों उत्पादन को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं? Why we want that productions in all the sectors of the economy becomes robust, stronger than before? Why? तो क्या होगा? हाँ, तो जीडीपी बढ़ने से क्या फायदा मिलेगा? अच्छा, सेल्फ, यहाँ कोई कह रहा है कि सर सेल्फ रिलायंस एंड मोर एम्प्लॉयमेंट, ठीक है, वेरी गुड। हाँ, पर कैपिटा इनकम में वृद्धि होगा, वेरी गुड। कैसे होगा मैं आपसे पूछूंगा। और हाँ, वो पर कैपिटा आता है। So, okay, fine. They are saying that per capita income of India will increase as a result of economic growth, right? है ना? Per capita income बढ़ेगा क्यों? Per capita income is what? The ratio between total output and total population, है ना? So when total output will increase, provided population remain constant, right? Or per capita income will increase, right? And when per capita income increases, what is the benefit? The standard of living of people will be enhanced, right? Per capita income of US is $46,000 per annum. Our per capita income is not even $2,000, right? Our per capita income is not even $2,000. It's approximately $1,850 right now. Per capita income of Bangladesh has surpassed than that of India. And US per capita income is $46,000 per annum. So think of the standard of living they are maintaining. We are not able to do so because our income is very less. So one of the benefit of growth is that it translates into more per capita income, which will enhance the standard of living of Indian people, right? At the same time, growth is the proxy of employment. है ना? Growth is the proxy of what? Employment. More the growth, more is the employment. है ना? We assume that if we have been able to produce more, that is because more and more people have got employment in the economy, right? So growth is essential to involve more and more workers into economic activity to ensure that there is less unemployment in the economy, right? Growth is also essential to ensure that there is an element of self-sufficiency in the economy, right? When we produce more and more in all the sectors of the economy, our dependence on other countries are going to be less and less, right? So we'll come to the point of self-sufficiency as a result of robust growth in our economy, right? आ गया समझ में? Then growth is the proxy of income also. More the growth, more the employment, more the income, right? So this is essential to increase even the absolute income of India. It's not only per capita income that will increase. We'll find that if we have stronger growth in the economy, or even per absolute income of India will increase, and that will pull many people from the level of poverty line, right? Once the absolute income increases, the level of poverty in our country will decline, the percentage of absolute poverty in our country will decline. So it is essential for the elimination of poverty in our country. है ना? आगे समझ में? है ना? तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि अगर रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया ग्रोथ को अचीव करना चाह रही है तो ग्रोथ से हमें क्या फायदा मिलेगा. सो दिस आर द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ हैविंग ग्रोथ इन द इकोनॉमी. और अगर ग्रोथ कम हो गया तो हमारा पर कैपिटा इनकम कम होगा, ज्यादा लोग गरीब रहेंगे, इनकम कम रहेंगी उनकी, ये सारे आपको डिसएडवांटेजेस जो है देखने को मिलेंगे. क्लियर है? So this is the first important objective of monetary policy. Why else monetary policy is conducted? The second important objective is for employment, for the promotion of employment, for the promotion of employment, right? This is implemented to promote employment in the economy. And what kind of monetary policy is required to promote employment? Yes, again expansionary. again expansionary monetary policy is needed, right, in which we bring down rate of interest that cause our investment to increase, and increase investment in the economy create more employment. Our employment will increase, right? So cheap monetary policy is required to promote employment. Third important objective is stability of price. Stability of price. Yes. This is another important objective of monetary policy. Stability of price. What does that mean? What do you mean by stability of price? Does that mean no change in price? Does that mean no change in price? It doesn't mean no change in price, right? You cannot prevent price from changing. It is obvious for the price of goods and services to change because price depends upon market forces of demand and supply, and market forces of demand and supply keeps on changing. So you cannot prevent price from changing. है Like the price of this duster is, let's suppose 15 rupees, and tomorrow it could be of 10 rupees or 20 rupees depending upon what the demand and supply of this particular product, right? So since the demand and supply of commodity keeps on changing, price will also change. You simply cannot prevent price from changing. So when we talk of stability of price, that doesn't mean no change in price. It doesn't mean fixation of price. Rather, stability of price means that there should not be wide fluctuations in price, right? Ensuring stability of price means there is no wide fluctuations in price in either of the direction, right? Price should not increase upward or reduce downward. If it increases upward, there is wide fluctuations. This phenomenon is called inflation. On the other hand, if plummets southward, this is called deflation. This is called deflation. So if price is not stable in the economy, we'll have either the problem of inflation or the problem of deflation. And to ensure that economy is protected against the adverse effect of inflation and deflation, Reserve Bank of India's mandate is to ensure the stability of price, right? So when Reserve Bank of India ensure the stability of price, it tries to ensure that there is neither the situation of inflation nor the situation of deflation in the economy, right? This is what we mean by stability of price. It means prevention of fluctuations in prices, है ना? It means to prevent fluctuations in prices. Price में जो fluctuations हो रहा उसको prevent करना, that is what we mean by stability of price. You got this? आप लोग बच्चों समझ गए? मंजोत, नकुल, ठीक है. अब आप लोग मुझे बताइए कि what kind of economic policy should be there to ensure stability of price? Contractionary or expansionary? आप कह रहे हैं कॉन्ट्रैक्शनरी. मैं आप लोगों से पूछ रहा हूं, नकुल, मंजोत, आप लोग बताइए कि व्हाट काइंड ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी शुड बी देयर टू एंश्योर स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ प्राइस. Manjot is saying expansionary, you are saying contractionary. In fact, both the kinds of monetary policy is required. It depends what kind of economic situations we are having in the economy. If we have inflation in the economy and prices needs to be brought down, we have to implement the contractionary monetary policy. But if there is plummeting of prices are going downwards, we have the deflation or slowdown in the economy, then in order to revive price in the economy so that our producers are encouraged, we have to implement the expansionary monetary policy, right? So both the policies are used by Reserve Bank of India to ensure the stability of price. Which particular policy will be implemented, that depends upon the current situation of the economy. At the time of inflation, it has to be contractionary. At the time of deflation, it has to be expansionary monetary policy. ठीक है, समझ में आ गया? And the last but not the least इज स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ एक्सचेंज रेट. लिखिए, द लास्ट इंपॉर्टेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव इज स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ exchange rate. Stability of exchange rate. एक्सचेंज रेट को भी स्टेबल करना रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया और उसकी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी का एक ऑब्जेक्टिव है ना. तो क्या होता है, व्हाट यू मीन बाय एक्सचेंज रेट? कॉस्ट ऑफ रुपी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डॉलर, कॉस्ट ऑफ रुपी, वैल्यू ऑफ रुपी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डॉलर. ठीक है, और कोई, व्हाट यू मीन बाय एक्सचेंज रेट? कल मेरा वीडियो देख लिए थे क्या? कल वीडियो देखे थे क्या मेरा? नहीं. अच्छा, नो, एक्सचेंज रेट का मतलब क्या है ये बताइए. स्वैपिंग या स्वैप बोल रहे हैं? स्वैपिंग. अच्छा, स्वैपिंग इज डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ एक्सरसाइज. इन फैक्ट ये यहाँ पे देखो ना यार, ये रेट लिखा हुआ, रेट है ना. एक्सचेंज रेट का मतलब होता है प्राइस ऑफ वन करेंसी इन टर्म्स ऑफ अनदर करेंसी, है ना. जैसे इन्होंने बताया, द वैल्यू ऑफ आवर करेंसी इन टर्म्स ऑफ अदर करेंसीज लाइक डॉलर और यूके पाउंड और येन, युआन, राइट. ठीक है. सो प्राइस ऑफ इंटरनेशनल करेंसी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डोमेस्टिक करेंसी इज व्हाट वी मीन बाय द एक्सचेंज रेट, है ना. सो दिस इज द रेट. एक्सचेंज रेट को आप कैसे डिफाइन करते हैं? The rate at which foreign currency is exchanged. Foreign currency is exchanged for domestic currency. For domestic currency. This is what we mean by exchange rate. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम लोग लिखते हैं कि $1 इज इक्वल टू 76 रुपीज. देखो, है ना. दिस शोज द एक्सचेंज रेट ऑफ डॉलर इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंडियन रुपी. सो इफ देयर हैज टू बी द एक्सचेंज बिटवीन डॉलर एंड इंडियन रुपी, दिस पर्टिकुलर रेट विल बी एप्लीकेबल. इन ऑर्डर टू ऑब्टेन 76 रुपीज we have to spend $1, or in order to acquire $1 we'll have to pay 76 rupees, right? So this is the exchange rate between US dollar and Indian rupee. Then if I say that 1 yuan, yuan is the currency of China, 1 yuan is equal to 12 rupees, let's suppose. So this is the exchange rate of yuan and Indian currency. If these two currency will exchanged, this exchange rate will prevail in the economy, right? For the sake of 1 yuan, we'll have to spend 12 rupees, or with the help of 1 yuan, we can obtain 12 Indian rupees, right? So we have different currencies in different countries. When those currencies are exchanged with each other, there has to be some rate at which they have to be exchanged, and that particular rate is called exchange rate. So this is the rate at which two different currencies are exchanged, right? In every book you find this kind of definition, but this definition is not going to make things very clear, है ना. इससे चीज जो है ज्यादा क्लियर नहीं होता है कि आफ्टर ऑल व्हाट इज एक्सचेंज रेट, है ना. Yes, we know that this is the rate at which two currencies will get exchanged, but in fact we have to know the practical meaning of exchange rate. तो मैं आप लोग को बता रहा हूँ, उस तरीके से आप लोग एक्सचेंज रेट को पढ़ना, है ना. ये हमेशा आपके दिमाग में रहेगा. देखो क्या होता है, आप जितने भी चीजों को देख रहे हैं ना, सबके अपने अपने प्राइसेस हैं, है ना. एवरी कमोडिटी दैट वी यूज इन आवर लाइफ जो हैव देयर रिस्पेक्टिव प्राइसेस, है ना. इस क्लासरूम में आप देखिए, एयर कंडीशनिंग लगा हुआ है, कैमरा लगा हुआ है, प्रोजेक्टर लगा हुआ है, है ना, यहाँ पे चेयर्स पड़े हुए हैं, है ना, घड़ी लगा हुआ है, फैन लगा हुआ है, एवरी आर्टिकल दैट वी यूज इन आवर डेली लाइफ जो हैव देयर रिस्पेक्टिव प्राइसेस, है ना, सम ऑफ देम विल ऑफ 100 रुपीज, सम ऑफ देम विल ऑफ 1000 रुपीज, 5000 रुपीज, 20,000 रुपीज, है ना. सो गुड्स और सर्विसेज डू हैव देयर रिस्पेक्टिव प्राइसेस, राइट. And if we start considering the currency of other countries as one of the commodity, then obviously that particular currency will have a certain price, right? If we start considering the currency of other countries as one of the commodity, then obviously even that currency will have certain price, and that price of foreign currency is called exchange rate. So exchange rate is nothing but the price of foreign currency, है ना. Exchange rate is nothing but the price of foreign currency. So when I write that $1 is equal to 76 rupees, this is the price of dollar in terms of Indian rupee, right? है ना, कि $1 को खरीदने के लिए 76 रुपए मुझे पे करना होगा. So in fact exchange rate is the price of foreign currency. The price of foreign currency in terms of what? In terms of domestic currency. This is what we mean by exchange rate. This is what we mean by exchange rate. So price of dollar in India is 76 right now. So we write $1 is equal to 76 rupees. Price of yuan is 12 rupees right now. So we write 1 yuan is equal to 12 rupees. है ना. Price of pound is 110 rupees. So we write 110 rupees. है ना. Price of euro is 85 rupees right now. So we write 85 rupees. You can see that different foreign currencies have different prices in terms of Indian currencies, and they all are called the exchange rate, right? So when you are asked what is the exchange rate of dollar, that means you are being asked what is the price of dollar, you simply say 76, है ना. Exchange rate of dollar means price of dollar. Exchange rate of yuan means price of yuan, right? So it simply means price of foreign currency in terms of domestic currency, right? So stability of exchange rate or the price of foreign currency is one of the objectives of monetary policy. Reserve Bank of India, through its monetary policy, tries to ensure that there is no wide fluctuations in prices of foreign currency, right? Stability of exchange rate means there should be no wide fluctuations in prices of foreign currency. Prices of foreign currency must be stable in terms of domestic currency, right? So what happens if price is not stable? What happens if exchange rate is not stable? That is what I am going to explain to you, so that you can understand the reasons behind why Reserve Bank of India, implements policy to ensure stability of exchange rate, है ना. So we'll take the example of dollar. So dollar price is 76 rupees. So this is the exchange rate of dollar. Look here, है ना. You have to look at the right hand side of the equation only, है ना. This is the exchange rate of dollar, or this is the price of dollar. And if this exchange rate is not stable, we'll have two possibilities. Either exchange rate will increase or exchange rate will decrease, right? So what is happening here? Exchange rate is increasing or decreasing? Exchange rate is increasing or decreasing? Yes, it's increasing from 76 to 77, finally to 80 rupees, right? That means price of dollar is increasing in terms of Indian rupee. Here, exchange rate is increasing. When exchange rate increases or the price of foreign currency increases, this is also called depreciation of Indian rupee. This is what? Depreciation of Indian rupee. Depreciation in Indian rupee. Here rupee is losing its value against dollar. How can you say that? You can see that initially in order to purchase 1 unit of dollar, we were spending 76 rupees, right? But now today, in order to purchase 1 unit of dollar, we'll have to spend more than that. How much? 80 rupees. That means rupee has lost its value to some extent. And that is the reasons we have to sell out more of Indian rupee to acquire 1 unit of dollar, isn't it? You got the point or not, guys? Increase in exchange rate means increase in the price of foreign currency, and when price of foreign currency increases in terms of Indian rupee, that implies that rupee is getting weaker, है ना? Rupee is getting weaker against what? Against dollar. You can prove this one, है ना? We have to spend more than before, and that signifies that rupee has lost its purchasing power to some extent over dollar. This is technically called depreciation of Indian rupee, right? So this is one of the possibilities when exchange rate is not stable, right? Another possibility is that when exchange rate is not stable, then exchange rate may decrease from 76 to, let's suppose, 73, and finally this became equal to 70 rupees. Here you find that exchange rate of dollar or the price of dollar in terms of Indian currency is on decline. Here exchange rate is on decline, and this implies what? Appreciation of Indian rupee. This implies appreciation of Indian rupee. Here rupee is getting stronger. Appreciation of Indian rupee. Rupee is getting stronger. How can you say that? Because now in the new situations we have to sell out smaller amount of Indian rupee to acquire 1 unit of dollar. Initially you can see that we were spending 76 to acquire 1 unit of dollar, but now we can have 1 unit of dollar by spending just 70 rupees, right? So now rupee has become what? Stronger than before. It has become stronger over dollar, right? So my point is that when exchange rate is not stable, when the price of foreign currency is not stable, we'll have either of the situations, right? We'll have either of the situations. Either we'll have depreciation of Indian rupee or rupee will be stronger in the economy, and both the situations do have their adverse impact on the economy, right? Neither of the situations should be considered beneficial for the economy. Both have their harmful effects for the economy, and that's the reasons Reserve Bank of India has been mandated to ensure the stability, है ना? बहुत लोग समझते हैं ना depreciation बेकार है, appreciation अच्छा है. If rupee is getting stronger, then that is in our favor. Had that been so, Reserve Bank of India's mandate would have been to go for the appreciation of Indian rupee, है ना? लेकिन RBI नहीं, अच्छा नहीं होता है. इन दोनों का डिसएडवांटेज है, इन दोनों का अपने अपने डिसएडवांटेजेस हैं. अगर इनमें से कोई भी अच्छा होता तो हम रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया को क्या बोलते कि आप उस ऑब्जेक्टिव को अचीव करो, है ना? अगर एप्रिसिएशन वुड हैव बीन बेटर देन depreciation, then Reserve Bank of India's mandate would have been to make sure that rupee becomes stronger in the economy. You pursue the policy that helps achieve that objective, but that's not so, है ना? Reserve Bank of India in fact has been asked to ensure the stability, and ensuring the stability means what? There should be neither the situation of depreciation nor the situation of appreciation of Indian rupee. क्या क्या डिसएडवांटेज है मैं बता रहा हूं. इन दोनों के क्या डिसएडवांटेज है थोड़ा मैं बता रहा हूं. मैं आपको एक्सचेंज रेट चैप्टर पढ़ाऊंगा, वहां पे डिटेल में मैं पढ़ाऊंगा, लेकिन अभी थोड़ी देर के लिए आप लोग समझिए कि व्हाट आर द डिसएडवांटेजेस फॉर द इकोनॉमी इफ वी हैव दिस सिचुएशंस ना. डेप्रिसिएशन में क्या होता है? You can see that price of dollar is increasing in terms of Indian rupee. So every transactions you make in terms of dollars will be expensive for you, है ना? When you buy things from other countries, that is our import, है ना? Our import will now be costlier. Our imports will be costlier as a result of depreciation. Let's suppose we used to import this marker from US, and the price of this marker was $1, है ना? So when we used to import this marker, we had to pay $1, and for that we were spending 76 rupees, right? So price of this marker in terms of Indian rupee was 76. Now rupee has depreciated and $1 has become equal to 80 rupees. In this new situation, if we import this product from US, you can see price in US still $1, right? But in order to acquire $1, now you will have to spend 80 rupees. So the price of this import in terms of Indian rupee has increased from 76 rupees to 80 rupees. है ना? So every transactions that we make in terms of dollar will be expensive now. Be it buying of things from other countries or making visits to other countries. If you go to US, let's suppose to pursue higher studies or to avail medical facilities or to roam about in that country as a tourist, right? So whatever the regions, you'll have to spend dollar in that country, right? And now acquiring of dollar has become expensive, more expensive, right? So your visit to other countries will be expensive as a result of depreciation, है ना? Then we pay our interest on external loans in terms of dollar, है ना? We pay our interest on terms in terms of dollars on our external loans. We take the loan from other countries like US or some multilateral agencies like World Bank, and time to time we have to pay the interest. They are not going to accept the interest in terms of Indian rupee, है ना? They are asking for dollar, and now acquiring of dollar in terms of Indian rupee has become expensive. So when you settle your external loans or pay the interest on external loans, both of them will be expensive, है ना? So these are the disadvantages for the economy, है ना? It's going to make your imports costlier than before. It's going to make your external loans more expensive than before. Our foreign visits will be expensive as a result of depreciation of this currency. But even the appreciation of currency is not good for the economy. We will have certain disadvantages out of appreciation of currency. So the most adverse effect of appreciation is that it causes our export to decline. Appreciation causes our export to decline. It causes our export to decline. And why this happens? Why export declines? Because rupee has become stronger. So when rupee becomes stronger, everything you purchase from Indian market is going to be expensive, है ना? कैसे देखो समझो. Let's suppose just few months back, US people used to come to India with $1, and at that time $1 was equal to 76. So when somebody from US used to come to India with $1, he was able to purchase goods worth 76 rupees, isn't it? है ना? He was able to purchase goods worth 76 rupees. But today, if that person comes to India with $1, he would be able to purchase goods worth only 70 rupees. है ना? So Indian market has become more expensive. है ना? It gives the buyers from other countries, smaller amount of goods and services than what they were taking taking from Indian market just few months back, right? So against $1, they were getting 76 worth of Indian goods just few months back, and today they are getting only 70 rupees of goods from Indian market. So that's going to dampen their propensity to purchase from Indian market, है ना? Their inclination to purchase from Indian market is going to decline as a result of this rupee becoming stronger than before, and that will cause our export, है ना, or sending out goods and services to other countries, as demand for Indian goods will decline among them. So our export to them is bound to be reduced as a result of appreciation, right? So neither of the situation is good for the economy, and that is why Reserve Bank of India's mandate under monetary policy is to ensure the stability of price. Because mandate is to ensure the stability of exchange rate, because if exchange rate is not stable, we'll have either depreciation of Indian rupee or appreciation of Indian rupee, and both of the situations will inflict harmful effects on economy and its people, right? आगे समझ में? Now we'll finally see how this stability of exchange rate is ensured by Reserve Bank of India. What exactly Reserve Bank of India does in order to ensure that there is no wide fluctuations in exchange rate, right? That means what RBI has to do at the time of depreciation of Indian rupee and what it has to do at the time of appreciation of Indian rupee, है ना? तो हम लोग फर्स्ट सिचुएशन को पहले देखेंगे ना. विल कंसिडर दैट वी हैव दिस सिचुएशन टुडे, राइट. द प्राइसेस ऑफ फॉरेन करेंसी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डोमेस्टिक करेंसी इज ऑन इंक्रीज. दैट मीन्स रुपी इज losing its value against dollar. We have this situation, depreciation of Indian currency, है ना. So when we have depreciation of Indian rupee, this also implies that there is appreciation of dollar, है ना. There is appreciation of dollar, है ना. You can see that dollar price is on increase, है ना. Dollar price is on the rise. Dollar is getting stronger. This is the actual problem that Reserve Bank of India has to deal with. So what Reserve Bank of India will do in order to deal with this problem, है ना. Appreciation of dollar. डॉलर का भाव बढ़ रहा, जिसका भाव बढ़ता है उसकी सप्लाई बढ़ा दो, उसका भाव कम हो जाएगा, है ना. समझ रहे हो कि नहीं तुम लोग. जिसका भाव बढ़ता है उसकी क्या करो, सप्लाई को बढ़ा दो. जैसे आलू का भाव बढ़ रहा, इफ द प्राइस ऑफ पोटैटो जो है इंक्रीज हो रहा, सो द सोल्यूशन इज टू ऑगमेंट द सप्लाई ऑफ पोटैटो इन द मार्केट, है ना. व्हेन द सप्लाई ऑफ पोटैटो इन द मार्केट विल इंक्रीज, दिस विल ब्रिंग डाउन द प्राइस ऑफ पोटैटो, है ना. हियर द एक्चुअल प्रॉब्लम इज दैट प्राइस ऑफ डॉलर इज ऑन द इंक्रीज. वी हैव टू रिड्यूस द प्राइस ऑफ डॉलर टू रेक्टिफाई द सिचुएशन. एंड हाउ वी कैन ब्रिंग डाउन द प्राइस ऑफ डॉलर्स? सिंपली बाय increasing the supply of dollar. So in this particular situation, to ensure that there is no further decline in the value of Indian rupee, right, or to stem the price of Indian rupee against dollar, Reserve Bank of India will start selling dollar in the market, है ना. RBI starts selling dollars in the market. From where? It is in the possession of what? Forex reserve. RBI is in the custody of a forex reserve of $630 billion today, है ना. RBI के कस्टडी में $630 billion पड़ा हुआ है. इतना forex का रिजर्व जो है इनके पास है ना. Some of them will Reserve Bank of India take out and start selling them in the market. That will cause supply of dollar in the market to increase and the price of dollar will start coming down. वो हम लोग एक्सचेंज रेट में जब पढ़ेंगे ना, SDR अलग चीज है, SDR अलग चीज है ना. SDR is one of the component of forex reserve. In forex reserve we have the 4 components. First is the FCA, है ना, foreign currency assets. Second one is gold reserve. Third one is SDR. Fourth one is RTP lying with the IMF, है ना. So SDR is one of the components of forex reserve, है ना. लेकिन dominant component is foreign currency assets. So Reserve Bank of India is having lots of them right now, है ना. Some of them can be just injected into the system. RBI will start selling them in the market so that their supply start increasing, and this will help Reserve Bank of India bringing down prices of dollars in the market. हाँ जी. नहीं, IMF के SDR बास्केट में 5 करेंसीज आप वो बोल रहे हो ना. हाँ, SDR बास्केट में 5 करेंसीज है, लेकिन 5 करेंसी से भी ज़्यादा करेंसीज का इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में यूज़ होता है ना. जैसे उसमें आपका डॉलर है, युआन है, येन है, पाउंड है और यूरो है. ये 5 करेंसी SDR बास्केट में है. लेकिन इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में क्रॉनर का भी यूज़ होता है, स्वीडन की करेंसी. ऑस्ट्रेलियन डॉलर को भी एक्सेप्ट किया जाता है ना. और बायलैटरल बेसिस में आप देख रहे हो नाउ, लाइक वी हैव सम कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विथ I mean the America has imposed some kind of sanction on Russia. So now Russia is trying to sell what? The crude oil to Indian companies on the basis of ruble, है ना. So Russia will start accepting ruble, or Iran start accepting our Indian rupee on bilateral basis. हम ईरान से जो खरीदते थे तेल, वो इंडिया का रुपी को एक्सेप्ट कर लेता था. हम उसको पैसे नहीं देते थे, उनका पैसा को हम यहाँ के यूको बैंक में जमा कर देते हैं. यूको इज वन ऑफ द पब्लिक सेक्टर कमर्शियल बैंक, राइट, है ना। तो मान लो कि हमने $100 बिलियन का ऑयल खरीदा ईरान से, हमें पेमेंट करना है $100 बिलियन, will pay in terms of Indian rupee, right? And will not transfer the money to the account of, the companies located in Iran. Rather, will deposit their money with a particular Indian bank, UK बैंक, यूको बैंक में जो है उनका खाता है, हमने उनके अकाउंट में यहाँ पे डाल दिया। अब वहां से कोई डिप्लोमेट्स आकर इंडिया में बसा हुआ है, वहाँ के IFS ऑफिसर जो है इंडिया में है, वहाँ के विद्यार्थी लोग जो है दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ते हैं, आप लोग जानते होंगे, है ना, पढ़ते हैं। उन सबको क्या चाहिए इंडिया में रहने के लिए? दे रिक्वायर इंडियन रूपी, राइट, बट दे हैव देयर ओन करेंसी दैट दे हैव ब्रॉट इन फ्रॉम देयर होम, राइट, बट इन ऑर्डर टू स्टे इन इंडिया, है ना, दे विल रिक्वायर इंडियन रूपी, सो दे कैन गो टू यूको बैंक एंड एक्सचेंज देयर करेंसी against their own currency, है ना, they will get the Indian rupee, and that manner, they just, make the adjustment of Indian rupee with their own currencies. So this is the way. So on bilateral basis, we start accepting one other currencies, but internationally देखेंगे there are 6 or 7 currencies which are widely accepted, and even among them the leading currency is the dollar, है ना। उस करेंसी को हम ज़्यादा डोमिनेंट मानते हैं, which inspire confidence among the people that its value is not going to reduce or increase in a very short span of time. The value of currency has to be stable. Then only this is going to inspire confidence on that currency among the people, and then people will start accepting. Since US is the largest economy in the world, the strongest economy in the world, its currency will value remain, more or less stable. Right, so people do have the confidence on this currency, and this currency is being used even in international transactions. ठीक है, so ये मैंने आप लोग को बताया कि how the situation of depreciation is dealt with by the Reserve Bank of India. It's by selling the dollars in the market, है ना। When dollar increases in volume, that brings down the price of dollar. Here the problem is that price of dollar is on the increase. And here the problem is what? The price of dollar is on decline, है ना। यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम क्या है? प्राइस डॉलर का क्या होता जा रहा? कम होता जा रहा। तो किसी का प्राइस को बढ़ाना है तो क्या करेंगे? किसी का प्राइस को बढ़ाना है तो उसका सप्लाई को कम कर दो, the price will further increase, right? So here the actual problem is decrease in the price of dollars. Now we want to increase the price of dollars so that rupee can be prevented from getting more stronger, है ना, rupee can be prevented from getting stronger, right? So what RBI will do here? RBI will start buying dollars from market. RBI will start buying dollars from market in large quantities, right? And this buying of dollars by Reserve Bank of India is going to create dearth of dollars in the market, right? It's going to create paucity of dollars in the market, and paucity of dollars will inflate the price of dollars, will rectify the situation of appreciation of Indian rupee. Is that clear? समझ में आया बच्चे जो ऑनलाइन बैठे हैं? नवजोत, नकुल, मनजोत। सो आपको ये ना ब्रीफली याद रखना है कि एट द टाइम ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन डॉलर हैज टू बी सोल्ड बाय रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, and at the time of appreciation Reserve Bank of India generally buy dollars from the market, है ना, and that helps Reserve Bank of India maintaining the value of international currency in terms of Indian currency, and that helps Reserve Bank of India basically ensuring the stability of exchange rate. ठीक है ये। so ये मैंने आप लोग को 4 important objectives बताएं, and that seems to be very simple कि अगर हमें ग्रोथ और एम्प्लॉयमेंट को अचीव करना है, will make our monetary policy less expensive, and when we have to ensure the stability of price, then we'll just see the situation whether we have the inflation or deflation. Accordingly, Reserve Bank of India will implement the cheap or dear monetary policy, and for the sake of ensuring the stability of exchange rate, will either sell or buy dollars from the market. It seems to be that simple, but in fact it is not as simple as it appears to be, right? Reserve Bank of India's task is, laden with lots of complex problems, right? When you look at the nature of all these objectives, you find them to be equally important. Look at the first important objective is economic growth. The second one is employment. Third one is stability of price, and fourth one is stability of exchange rate. है ना? All these four important objectives, है ना? They are equally important. I mean to say, growth is as important as stability of price, because if growth is there in the economy without having stable prices, then it will erode the benefits of economic growth. मान लो कि उत्पादन हो रहा, ग्रोथ हो रहा, लोगों की आय बढ़ रही है, लेकिन मान लो कि हम लोग स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ प्राइस को इंश्योर नहीं कर पा रहे, इन्फ्लेशन भी है, तो आपके इनकम का इंक्रीज का कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ. होगा क्या? समझ रहे हो कि नहीं तुम लोग मेरी बात? अगर ग्रोथ है इकोनॉमी में, ग्रोथ का मतलब क्या है? हमारा इनकम क्या हो रहा? इंक्रीज हो रहा. बट इफ देर इज नो स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ प्राइस एंड लेट्स सपोज देर इज इन्फ्लेशन इन द इकोनॉमी, so there is no benefit of increase in income, because whatever increase that will take place in our income will get eroded as an impact of inflation, है ना? तो our economic condition will not improve, we will remain as poor as we were. So we have to ensure that along with growth we ensure the stability of price, then only people will get advantage of increase in their income or economic growth, right? All these objectives are equally important. You cannot say that one is more important than the other. So obviously Reserve Bank of India through its monetary policy would like to achieve all these objectives simultaneously, isn't it? If they are equally important, Reserve Bank of India will strive to achieve them all simultaneously through its monetary policy. But the problem is that there is a conflict among all these objectives. There is a trade-off among all these objectives, and this trade-off prevents Reserve Bank of India achieving all these objectives simultaneously. If one is achieved, other is lost. If Reserve Bank of India achieve the other one, the first one is lost. So Reserve Bank of India in a kind of dilemma all the time, what to achieve and what to sacrifice. I just give you the example of this kind of conflict that we find among various objectives of monetary policy, है ना? मैं बता रहा हूं, देखो यहाँ पे just give you the example, है ना? This is called trade-off between, this is called trade-off between. आप डिक्शनरी में ट्रेड ऑफ का मतलब देखना, इसका मतलब होता है काइंड ऑफ कॉम्प्रोमाइज, है ना? कॉम्प्रोमाइज को हम लोग ट्रेड ऑफ कहते हैं. कॉन्फ्लिक्ट भी बोल सकते हो, है ना? कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन इन्फ्लेशन एंड ग्रोथ, इन्फ्लेशन एंड growth. So what this conflict is all about between these two objectives of monetary policy. Look here, controlling of inflation is one of the objectives of monetary policy that comes under stability of price, isn't it? है ना? Controlling of inflation is one of the objectives of monetary policy that comes under stability of price, and augmenting growth in the economy is another objective. RBI through its monetary policy wants to increase growth and control inflation, and both are equally important, right? Both are equally important. I told you that growth without controlling of inflation is meaningless, right? So both of the objectives have to be achieved by Reserve Bank of India through its monetary policy, but we find a kind of conflict between the objective of growth and inflation. That means if growth will be achieved, we cannot control inflation, and if we control inflation, we have to sacrifice growth. There lies the policy dilemma in the mind of Reserve Bank of India, right? Several times Reserve Bank of India is in a kind of fix, in a kind of confusion as to what to do, whether to achieve economic growth or to achieve controlling of inflation. If it achieves growth, inflation overshoots. Rather to come down, it increases, right? And if it controls inflation, Reserve Bank of India finds that growth needs to be sacrificed, right? So how this conflict is there, that is what I am going to explain to you, right? Look here, if Reserve Bank of India's concern is growth, let's suppose if RBI wants to increase growth in the economy, we have seen that for that reasons, cheap monetary policy is required, expansionary monetary policy is required, and for that reasons we'll have to bring down rate of interest by bringing repo rate, है ना? So let's suppose Reserve Bank of India implements expansionary monetary policy, repo rate has been brought down and that cause rate of interest to come down. This will translate into growth because at lower rate of interest, investment will go up. Investment will go up and that translate into more productions of output, will have the growth in the economy, right? But by implementing this expansionary monetary policy, we will aggravate the situation of inflation. Inflation will not be controlled. Rather, it will get aggravated. And why this is so? Because you can see that in expansionary monetary policy, rate of interest has come down, and that will cause people to avail more credit from the banking system, right? At lower rate of interest, people will start availing more and more credit, and that will cause money supply to increase. When money increases in supply, aggregate demand becomes stronger than before, and when demand increases in the economy, even the price will increase, will have more inflation in the economy. What do you find? You find that by implementing the expansionary monetary policy, we can achieve the objective of growth, but inflation will get aggravated. Inflation cannot be controlled in that manner, right? Is that clear? समझ में आ रहा बच्चों जो ऑनलाइन बैठे हैं? ये ऑनलाइन मुझे तो समझ में नहीं आता यार. ऑफलाइन क्लास ऑफलाइन ही होता है, अब उल्टा होता जा रहा. अभी हमारे कल्चर में क्या था, एक समय पढ़ने के लिए जो है गुरुकुल में हम लोग जाया करते थे. हम लोग नहीं, मतलब जैसे राम भगवान को भी आश्रम में गुरुकुल में जाना पड़ा ना. उनका भी गुरु का नाम वशिष्ठ था, मेरा नाम भी वशिष्ठ है ना. बट आई एम नॉट दैट, है ना, नॉलेजेबल. फिर भी आई एम लकी दैट आई एम, माय पेरेंट्स जो है मुझे ये नाम दिए, है ना. तो राम भगवान जो भगवान भी होते थे, उनको आश्रम में जाकर रहना पड़ता था. वहां पे जो नियम रहते थे उनका पूरा पालन करना होता था. अन्य विद्यार्थियों के साथ रहना पड़ता था. ऐसा नहीं कि आप राजा के घर से हैं तो आपको कुछ वहां पे अलग प्रिविलेज मिल रहा है, ऐसा नहीं है ना. तो ये सिस्टम हुआ करता था. फिर क्या हुआ, फिर आप आश्रम नहीं जाके विद्यालय जाने लगे. फिर अब क्या होने लगा, विद्यालय या कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स नहीं आकर आप अपने घर में बैठे हैं. टीचर सारे कोचिंग में और आप घर से बैठ के पढ़ रहे हैं. और कुछ दिन के बाद पता चलेगा कि हम लोग को घर जाकर पढ़ाना पड़ रहा है ना. और अभी तो होम ट्यूशन का कॉन्सेप्ट तो यही है ना कि बच्चे नहीं आते हैं. बच्चों को घर से दूर रखेंगे तभी बच्चे पढ़ पाते हैं. घर में उनको एक साइकोलॉजिकल जो है ना, एक बैकअप मिलता रहता है ना. तो टीचर्स से वो डरते नहीं है, इसलिए घर से बाहर निकल के पढ़ेंगे तो आपको मजा आएगा. एनीवेज, आप लोग की कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगी, सो यू आर सिटिंग अक्रॉस थ्रू ऑनलाइन, है ना. बट बेटर यू कम टू द क्लास, है ना. अगर आपको अच्छा से सीखना है तो यहाँ पे आना होगा. तो ये समझ गए आप लोग, है ना. एक्सपेंशनरी helps Reserve Bank of India achieve the objective of growth, but we defeat the objective of controlling of inflation. On the other hand, if concern of RBI, let's suppose if concern of RBI is controlling of inflation, let's suppose the focus is on controlling of inflation, for that reasons RBI will have to implement contractionary monetary policy, है ना. Here RBI will increase repo rate so that rate of interest can be increased. An increased rate of interest helps RBI controlling of inflation. We know that people will start taking smaller amount of loans, money supply will decrease, है ना, and that cause inflation to come down. But what happens under contractionary monetary policy? You can see that here rate of interest is being increased, and that will impact investment in the economy, isn't it? At higher rate of interest, now investment will come down. Investment is inversely related to rate of interest. Now investment will come down and that impacts the process of growth, है ना. So we have controlled inflation by using contractionary monetary policy, but that comes at the cost of growth, and when we achieve growth, that comes at the cost of more inflation. So there lies a conflict, a trade-off among various objectives of monetary policy, and that makes the task of Reserve Bank of India difficult one, है ना. There is always a kind of policy dilemma in the mind of RBI as to what to do, whether to achieve growth or to achieve controlling of inflation. They seems to be equally important, right? But in our framework of new monetary policy, we have been, to some extent, we have been able to overcome this dilemma in the mind of Reserve Bank of India. Now, Reserve Bank of India is not that confused, not that hesitant in taking the decisions, right? So, what provisions have been inserted in our framework of new monetary policy that allows Reserve Bank of India to be relaxed? We'll discuss, है ना. अब हम लोग उसको डिस्कस करेंगे. विल डिस्कस द inflation targeting, which is the new framework of monetary policy. But before that, we'll take the break of 5 minutes, है ना. So we have completed the meaning of monetary policy, various types of monetary policy, objectives and conflict among various objectives, and at last we'll be discussing the last topic of this particular chapter, that is called new framework of monetary policy, inflation targeting, after a break of 5 minutes, है ना. Thank you. चलिए, दिल्ली में रिलेटिव नहीं है तो आप लोग अकेले भी आ सकते हैं. सभी लोग अपने रिलेटिव्स के पास नहीं आते हैं ना. चलिए, इस चैप्टर का लास्ट टॉपिक हम लोग पढ़ने जा रहे हैं. विल डिस्कस द न्यू फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी इन इंडिया. द न्यू फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी. New framework of monetary policy, which is called inflation targeting. This is the last and the new topic of this chapter, है ना. नहीं, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी का यार, मैं मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी पढ़ा रहा हूँ ना. मैं तो अभी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी पढ़ा रहा हूँ. व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज दिस इज द लास्ट टॉपिक ऑफ द प्रेजेंट चैप्टर, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, है ना. इसमें हम लोग न्यू फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी को डिस्कस करेंगे, एंड दिस फ्रेमवर्क इज कॉल्ड इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग. इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग. So first we'll see the background of inflation targeting in India. Please write down the background of inflation targeting. Write down the background of inflation targeting. लिखिए. India has introduced the new framework of monetary policy. India has introduced the new framework of monetary policy नहीं, आप ना हैज़ को काट दो प्लीज़. हैज़ को काट दीजिए. इंडिया इंट्रोड्यूस्ड लिखिए. हैज़ को काट दीजिए. इंडिया इंट्रोड्यूस्ड द न्यू फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी इन 2016. इन 2016. The framework was introduced. The framework was introduced on the basis of advice of Urjit Patel Committee. On the basis of advice of Urjit Patel Committee. Urjit Patel, Urjit, URJIT, है ना. On the advice of Urjit Patel Committee, which was constituted by RBI, in September 2013. In September 2013, and the committee gave its report to RBI, and the committee gave its report to RBI next year in 2014. Next year in 2014. In this particular report, in this particular report, the committee had suggested, the committee had suggested a new framework of monetary policy for India. Committee had suggested a new framework, a new framework of monetary policy for India. Committee had suggested a new framework of monetary policy for India. A new framework of monetary policy for India. नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ में लिखो, प्लीज चेंज योर पैराग्राफ. फिर लिखिए द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एंड द आरबीआई, द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एंड द आरबीआई, एंड द आरबीआई got agreed to, got agreed, है ना, got agreed to implement this framework, implement this framework got agreed to implement this framework, and finally the framework came into force in June 2016, and finally the framework came into force in June 2016. This new framework of monetary policy, this new framework of monetary policy adopted by India, this new framework of monetary policy adopted by India is called inflation targeting, is called inflation targeting, right? So this is a brief background of our new framework of monetary policy. You can see that we introduced this framework in 2016 only, and this was done on the basis of advice of a particular committee which was appointed by the Reserve Bank of India in September 2013, right? Urjit Patel, he was the chairman of this committee, so this committee is called Urjit Patel committee. This committee gave the report to the Reserve Bank of India in 2014, and in that particular report a new framework was suggested. So finally the government and the Reserve Bank of India got agreed to introduce this. Finally it saw the light of the day in June 2016, right? So from 2016 onwards we have this new framework of monetary policy which is called inflation targeting, right? Now we'll discuss various important provisions of inflation targeting, and we'll compare it with the monetary policy that we had before 2016, है ना? From 2016 we have the new framework, a new structure of monetary policy which is called inflation targeting, है ना? We'll discuss all the important provisions of inflation targeting, and simultaneously we'll compare them with the monetary policy that we had prior to 2016, right? So लिखिए important provisions of inflation targeting. Please write it down. Important provisions of inflation targeting. लिखिए अंडर न्यू फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, या अंडर इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग लिखो तुम लोग, उतना बड़ा लिखने की जरूरत नहीं। अंडर इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग, अंडर इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, the most important objective of monetary policy is, the most important objective of monetary policy is stability of price, is stability of price. Other objectives are considered to be secondary. Other objectives are considered to be secondary. ठीक है? So now we have this new framework of monetary policy which is called inflation targeting, and in this new framework the dominant objective of monetary policy is stability of price. Other objectives like growth, employment and stability of exchange rate, है ना, these objectives will be considered as secondary. Secondary means of less importance. The dominant objective is going to be what? Stability of price, है ना. So what is the difference? The difference is that in the previous monetary policy that we had before 2016, there was no such ranking of objectives. In fact, in those times all these objectives were considered to be equally important, and Reserve Bank of India used to strive for each one of them simultaneously, right? We didn't rank them in terms of their importance. That means stability of price was as important as growth and employment, and they were as important as stability of exchange rate. There was no ranking at all. So RBI used to strive for each one of them simultaneously. But now there has been a departure from this practice. As you can see that now in this new framework of monetary policy, the dominant objective is going to be stability of price, and other objectives will be considered as secondary, of less importance. But I'm not trying to say that Reserve Bank of India's or monetary policy will have now single objective. No, we still have four important objectives, but what we have done is to rank them in terms of their importance, right? So now if there is now decide between inflation and growth, if RBI has to decide between inflation and growth, whether to increase growth or control inflation, what do you think Reserve Bank of India concentrate upon? Which factor Reserve Bank of India will focus on more? Inflation, right? Because now the stability of price has been the dominant objective of monetary policy. So Reserve Bank of India, in order to control inflation, will not care about growth. Let some sort of growth be sacrificed, but first we will control inflation in the economy, right? अभी से थोड़ी देर पहले मैं बोल रहा था कि there was conflict in these two objectives of monetary policy, and that conflicts engender a kind of dilemma in the mind of Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India was confused as to what to do, whether to achieve growth or control inflation. But now that dilemma has been removed from the minds of Reserve Bank of India, because a clear-cut mandate has been given to RBI that you just focus on stability of price. Even at the cost of growth, you have to do so, right? So now if there is the question of growth and inflation, obviously as per the mandate of new framework of monetary policy, Reserve Bank of India is going to concentrate upon controlling of inflation, right? This is what we mean by dominance of this objective. Clear hai? So this one is the first one. Now you can see that our new framework of monetary policy is called inflation targeting. This is called inflation targeting. That means in this framework, RBI will target inflation. RBI will target inflation, but RBI will not fix the target on inflation. RBI will simply try to achieve the target on inflation. So who gives the target on inflation to RBI? So this is the government of India, है ना? लिखो second point. Second provision, under new framework of monetary policy, under new framework of monetary policy, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, आकाश देखना ये क्या हुआ, अंडर न्यू फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया फिक्स टारगेट्स ऑन, फिक्सेस लिखो है ना, ई एस कर देना, FIXES है ना, ई एस कर दो, फिक्सेस। गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया फिक्सेस टारगेट ऑन इन्फ्लेशन, fixes target on inflation, and the Reserve Bank of India simply tries to achieve that target, and the RBI simply try to achieve that target using its fixes target on inflation. Government of India fixes target on inflation, and the Reserve Bank of India simply tries to achieve that target using its monetary policy. Am I audible to all the students who are sitting online? Am I audible? Are you writing down this second point? And the RBI will simply achieve that target using its monetary policy. Using its monetary policy means using the quantitative and qualitative tools. ठीक है? So this is how the agreement between the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India. When the final report was submitted by Urjit Patel had, just advised that let Reserve Bank of India fix the target and let it, achieve the target itself. But the government was not inclined to this, condition. Government wanted that let me fix the target and Reserve Bank of India will achieve that target using its monetary policy. So finally, this agreement took place between the RBI and the government, right? So under this new framework, target on inflation will be given by whom? The government. And RBI will simply try to achieve that target on inflation using its monetary policy, right? So now we have to know what is the present target on inflation that is given to RBI. What is the present target on inflation that has been given to RBI? You must be knowing that the present target on inflation is 4%. RBI has been asked to control inflation at how much? At 4%, right? What do you mean by inflation of 4%? Inflation of 4% means average price should not increase more than that. Annual increase in average price must be 4%, not beyond that. ठीक है? Inflation refers to annual increase in average price. And as per the mandate, Reserve Bank of India has to control inflation at 4%. But this target is not the fixed one. It's a flexible target. It's a flexible target in the sense that 2% of departure or deviation has been allowed in both the directions, right? The point target is 4%, no doubt, but this is a flexible target in the sense that a departure of 2% has been allowed in both the directions. That means if it increases to 5%, it's okay, no problem. If it increases further to 6%, no problem. A departure of 2% has been allowed, but RBI has to ensure that inflation doesn't cross 6%. Even in leftward direction, a departure of 2% has been allowed. So if inflation drops to 3%, it's okay, no problem. If it further drops to 2%, no problem. Inflation should not drop below 2%. So effectively, Reserve Bank of India will have to contain inflation within 2% to 6%. Are you getting my point? It's a flexible target. Departure of 2% in both the directions has been allowed. So effectively, Reserve Bank of India's mandate is to control inflation between 2% and 6%. है ना? लिखो इसको थर्ड पॉइंट में लिख लो आप लोग. The present target on inflation is 4%, but a deviation of 2%, डिपार्चर भी लिख सकते हो, डेविएशन भी लिख सकते हो ना. ए डेविएशन ऑफ 2% हैज बिन अलाउड इन बोथ द डायरेक्शंस, हैज बिन अलाउड इन बोथ द डायरेक्शंस. So effectively, so effectively RBI needs to control inflation. RBI needs to control inflation between 2 and 6%. Between 2 and 6% under new framework. Under new framework. RBI needs to control और contain भी लिख सकते हैं आप लोग. Needs to contain inflation between 2 and 6% under new framework. Under new framework. अब समझ गए ना हम लोग इसको इन्फ्लेशन टारगेटिंग क्यों कह रहे हैं न्यू फ्रेमवर्क को, है ना, क्योंकि हियर आरबीआई टारगेट्स इन्फ्लेशन, वांट्स टू कंटेन इन्फ्लेशन बिटवीन 2 to 6%. बट व्हाई सच टारगेट हैज बीन गिवन? व्हाई बिटवीन 2 to 6%? व्हाट इज द लॉजिक? लुक हियर, दिस इज द पॉइंट, है ना, दैट मीन्स इन्फ्लेशन शुड बी 4%, है ना. And if we move rightward from this point, rate of inflation is increasing, and when this increases, that puts economic burden on poor people. So RBI has been mandated to ensure that inflation doesn't cross 6%. Otherwise, this is going to harm the economic benefits of poor classes. Are you getting my point? In order to protect the economic interest of poor classes, RBI has to ensure that inflation in the economy doesn't cross 6%, right? From this point, if we move leftward, rate of inflation is decreasing. This is called disinflation. This is called disinflation. Here we have inflation, but rate of inflation is decreasing, है ना? And when there is disinflation in the economy, rate of inflation is on decline. That impacts the economic well-being of our producers, है ना? That impacts the profits of our producers. So RBI has been asked by the government to ensure that prices in the economy doesn't fall below 2%. Otherwise, this will discourage our producers. This will discourage our producers and they will cut down their productions in the economy. That will render many people unemployed in the economy. है ना? समझ रहे हो कि नहीं? अगर प्राइसेस प्लमिट होता जाएगा, गिरता जाएगा, तो अल्टीमेटली दिस इज गोइंग टू डिस्करेज आवर प्रोड्यूसर्स, है ना. वो लोग क्या करेंगे, फिर अपने प्रोडक्शंस को कट करेंगे एंड दैट्स गोइंग टू रेंडर मेनी पीपल इन द इकोनॉमी एज अनएम्प्लॉयड, राइट. सो दिस और सच टारगेट हैज बीन गिवन टू रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया टू एंश्योर दैट द इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट ऑफ बोथ कंज्यूमर्स as well as producers are protected. So inflation has to be between 2% and 6%. आगे समझ में. The next provision लिखिए. अच्छा, इसको मैं कंपेयर कर दे रहा हूं प्रीवियस मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी से, है ना. In the previous monetary policy that used to be there in the economy before 2016, Reserve Bank of India used to control inflation even in that framework. But what is the difference? Difference was that there was no clear-cut target on inflation that Reserve Bank of India was trying to achieve, right? But now you have a very clear-cut target on inflation. Now you have become target-oriented, and that's going to enhance your, effectiveness, right? Initially you were just groping in the dark, है ना. You were groping in the dark, you were trying to control inflation, but you were not confident at what level you have to keep the inflation so that protect the economic interest of both the classes. But now a target has been given, so our monetary policy and Reserve Bank of India has become target oriented. ठीक है. The next one is that, लिखो, the next provision, please write it down. If RBI fails to achieve this target continuously for 9 months of time, if RBI fails to achieve this target continuously for 9 months of time, then it would be considered that then it would be considered that monetary policy in the economy has failed. Monetary policy in the economy has failed. Monetary policy in the economy has failed, and it would be considered that monetary policy in the economy has failed, and and in that situation in that situation the RBI will have to write a letter to Government of India. The RBI will have to write letter to the Government of India. The RBI will have to write a letter to the Government of India explaining the reason for this failure. To the Government of India explaining the reason for this failure. Explaining the reason for this failure. ठीक है, ऑनलाइन वाले बच्चे लिख लिए. फिर से मैं रिपीट कर दे रहा हूं कि इफ आरबीआई फेल्स टू अचीव दिस ऑब्जेक्टिव कंटिन्यूसली फॉर 9 months of time, then it would be considered that monetary policy in India has failed. In that situation, RBI will have to write a letter to Government of India explaining the reason for this failure. Right? And what is the implication of this provision? We'll discuss later on, but first you have to understand that if inflation in the economy for the last 9 months of time is either below 2% or more than 6%, है ना. मान लो कि पिछले 9 महीने से इन्फ्लेशन जो है 2 से 6% के बीच में नहीं है. It may be more than 6% or less than 2%, and it's happening for the last 9 months of time. Then finally, after 9 months of time, it would be considered that our monetary policy has become ineffective. Right? And in that situation, RBI will give the explanation to Government of India कि why monetary policy has become a failure. Right? So the implication of this provision is that now even in the conduct of monetary policy, RBI has been accountable to Government of India. Right? दिख रहा ना, RBI is accountable to whom? The Government of India. Accountable to Government of India means accountable to people of India. है ना, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट को हम लोग ही तो इलेक्ट कर रहे हैं ना. We elect our government. So if RBI has been made accountable to Government of India, it means in the conduct of monetary policy, Reserve Bank of India is accountable to people of India. You can see that the target on inflation is given to RBI by Government of India. And if RBI cannot achieve that target continuously for 9 months of time, then RBI will have to be answerable to Government of India. It will have to give the explanation to Government of India. So in the conduct of monetary policy, now Reserve Bank of India is not as independent as it used to be before 2016. Before 2016, if Reserve Bank of India has not been able to achieve the objective, it was not answerable to Government of India. Right? The failure, the success, everything got confined within the ambit or premises of Reserve Bank of India. The words never went to the Government of India. But now words needs to be sent to the Government of India. What factors led the failure of monetary policy? Right? So in the conduct of monetary policy, you find that Reserve Bank of India has to be answerable to the people of India and directly to the Government of India. ठीक है? ये हो गया. Now there is a disclosure norms on Reserve Bank of India. What RBI needs to disclose under new framework of monetary policy? So every 6 months of time, the next provision, please write it down. Next provision, please write it down. Every 6 months of time, the Reserve Bank of India needs to disclose the RBI needs to disclose potential sources of inflation in the economy, potential sources of inflation in the economy, potential sources of inflation in the economy, and the methods by which it is going to combat inflation. The methods by which it is going to combat inflation. With the methods by which it is going to deal with inflation. or combat, deal with लिखिए या combat, COMBAT, fight with inflation. combat means fight, है ना. ये डिस्क्लोजर का नॉर्म्स है बच्चों. every 6 months of time Reserve Bank of India is required to disclose these two important and related things. कि what are the potential sources of inflation in the economy and how Reserve Bank of India is going to combat inflation that may lurk in the economy, right? Like देखो क्या होता है, रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया अपने पब्लिकेशन के थ्रू, है ना, हमें इन्फॉर्म करती है टाइम टू टाइम, है ना. वीकली पब्लिकेशंस है, इनका फोर्टनाइटली या मंथली पब्लिकेशंस भी आते हैं, उसमें डिस्क्लोज किया जाता है. और ये मैंडेटरी कर दिया गया है आरबीआई के लिए कि एवरी 6 मंथ्स आपको ये दो चीज़ बताना होगा लोगों को कि व्हाट आर द पोटेंशियल सोर्सेस ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन, व्हाट फैक्टर्स में इंजेंडर इन्फ्लेशन इन द इकोनॉमी, है ना. रिस्क फैक्टर क्या है इन्फ्लेशन का, यू इन्फॉर्म द पीपल every 6 months of time and you also inform how you are going to combat that inflation, right? Like I gave you the example, है ना. I mean three years back in I think 2019 or 18 रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया ने एक बार बताया था कि मॉनसून जो है इस बार सफिशिएंट नहीं है. देयर इज डेफिसिट इन मॉनसून दिस टाइम. फॉर द लास्ट 3 years ऑफ टाइम वी हैव नॉर्मल मॉनसून, है ना. इस साल भी जो प्रिडिक्शन आया है आईएमडी का, नॉर्मल बोल रहा है कि नॉर्मल मॉनसून रहेगा. वी हैव बीन लकी फॉर द लास्ट 4 years ऑफ टाइम, है ना. लेकिन 2018 में मॉनसून जो है डेफिसिट था, है ना. देयर वाज नो सफिशिएंट रेनफॉल इन आवर कंट्री एंड दैट इम्पैक्टेड व्हाट, दैट इम्पैक्टेड प्रोडक्शन ऑफ फूड ग्रेन्स, है ना. फूड ग्रेन्स का प्राइस इंक्रीज होगा तो दैट विल ट्रांसलेट इनटू general inflation in the economy, right? So this is the main driver of inflation in our country, the prices of food grains, right? And when we had deficit monsoon, obviously the price of food grains will be impacted, that will translate into general inflation in the economy. So this was one of the risk factor to inflation that Reserve Bank of India disclosed to the people of India, that yes, we are going to have deficit monsoon and that will have the inflation impact on the economy. The first factor. The second factor that was highlighted by Reserve Bank of India as a potential factor was the 7th pay commission report of government of India, है ना. 7th pay commission report that government of India accepted. You must be knowing that every 10 years of time, in order to revise the salary and wages of central and state government employees, the government constitute pay commission, right? And pay commission advise the government what percentage salary and wages of central government and state government employees must be increased, right? So this happens every 10 years of time. Your basic salary is increased every 10 years of time. Otherwise DA, है ना, जो dearness allowance जो है वो हर एक साल increase होता है, but the basic salary get hiked every 10 years of time on the advice of pay commission. So government of India had accepted the advice of this 7th pay commission and accordingly the government was on the brink of increasing the salary, right? So how this will translate into inflation? When more wages will be given to people belonging to the enterprises of central government or state government, obviously this will increase money supply in the economy, right? Central and state government employees will start getting more salary for equivalent amount of work they were doing previously, right? Now they will start getting more salary, money supply increases and that will translate into inflation, price will increase, right? So these two factors were at that time highlighted by Reserve Bank of India. So this has to be done by RBI. Every 6 months of time, it has to inform the people about the lurking risk to inflation. What risk there in the economy for inflation and how inflation is going to be dealt with by the Reserve Bank of India, right? But what purpose it is going to serve? Why this is mandatory? Why this disclosure is required? बताइए. This will make our monetary policy more transparent. You know, the disclosure on the part of Reserve Bank of India about inflation will make our monetary policy more transparent, more predictable. है ना. इससे हमारा मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी जो है और ज़्यादा ट्रांसपेरेंट हो जाएगा. ट्रांसपेरेंसी, you know transparency, what is that transparency? हाँ, अकाउंटेबल टू पीपल, तो उसको अकाउंटेबिलिटी बोलेंगे, ट्रांसपेरेंसी क्यों बोलेंगे? Being accountable, that means accountability. What you mean by transparency in the system? How you define transparency? Okay, public know the things, public know, I mean, how the things are being done by the government. यही है. What do you mean by transparency? Look here. Everything that is in the interest of the public must be disclosed. That is what we mean by transparency at the government level. If the government discloses everything that is pertinent to our interest, that is, relevant to our interest, that means system is transparency. So inflation is the subject that is pertinent to common people. We take our decisions on day-to-day basis on the basis of the expected rate of inflation. Like, let's suppose you want to buy something of greater value, let's suppose 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs, and you are being informed by your friend that wait for 2 months more and the price will plummet further. So rather to make purchase right now, you will wait for 2 months of time. You are taking your decisions on the basis of expected rate of inflation that will take place after two months of time. Even our producers are taking so many decisions on the basis of inflation. So inflation is something on which consumers and producers make their decisions, right? So we must have a correct information about inflation. So what is the institution that will give us the correct information on inflation? Obviously, the institution which is responsible for controlling of inflation, our central bank. Central bank is the right agency. It is the appropriate agency to give information on inflation. So now it has been made mandatory for Reserve Bank of India to disclose factors that could increase inflation in the economy and how the central bank is going to deal with the situation, so that our monetary policy become transparent and consumers and producers may base their decisions on the basis of projections of Reserve Bank of India, right? आगे समझ में आप लोगों को? So अभी कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है, बट टाइम इज अप ना, टाइम इज अप. We'll continue this particular topic even in the next class, but we are not I mean, there are only 2 or 3 points that has been left. So in the first hour of tomorrow class, I will be able to complete this one, and then we'll start a new chapter, that is inflation, है ना. इन्फ्लेशन कल हम लोग यहाँ पे स्टार्ट करेंगे. थैंक यू. ऑनलाइन वाले बच्चे कुछ पूछना है, कुछ नहीं लिख सके तो पूछ सकते हैं आप लोग. मंजोत, नकुल एंड अंकित, सब क्लियर है? ठीक है, थैंक यू. क्लियर है, चलिए ठीक है. कल की क्लास में फिर हम लोग इस टॉपिक को कंप्लीट करेंगे. थैंक यू.